I'm almost done with the show.
What show?
And I think you've seen it. I'm almost done with season 2. It's called Shrinking.
Oh, I love that show.
Oh my God,
dude.
what a show.
Oh my God. I'm so glad you discovered it.
I don't know what, I mean, I love Harrison Ford and I wanted to watch it. And it seems like the first time Harrison Ford has given a shit in a very long time.
It's also the most himself I feel like he's been, because in his interviews when he's not putting a wall up, it's that character.
It's like a deconstruction of himself.
Yeah.
Is like what I'm watching there.
It's
And
beautiful.
I think it's Jason Segal's best performance he's ever done, hands down. And as someone who started going to therapy, I believe in 2012 is when I started going to therapy. 2012, 2011. I haven't been in the last month and a half due to reasons. However, the concept alone of a therapist who takes things into their own hands, crossing the line, I love it for a multitude of reasons. Like, okay, my wife, Olivia, she could call me on this shit. She's like, you always introduce me to my wife, Olivia. It's like, I'm like, what does that mean? She's like, I'm just your wife to people's identity. And then I talked about this with the person who cuts my hair because she's engaged, and I brought that up. She's like, oh, she's 100% right. Like,
so does she want Olivia, my wife?
Yeah. And I'm like, oh yeah, and then apparently this is a thought. I never even considered it. Anyway, Olivia, my wife, like she came in and saw a scene from season 2. First bit of footage she's ever seen. She's like, oh my God, what is this? There's no way I could tolerate this show, because she has such a big psychology background.
Sure.
And it's just so unethical, right? But so much of my relationship with therapy, after being in it for so long, when I felt like not many people were going, now it's like the norm and the cool thing to do, especially in LA.
In our circles. It's still not the norm, I think, in 48 states.
In 48 states, yes. But I think I noticed a lot of people in New York go, but in California, online, there's a lot about going to therapy. And I think there's a big, different type of weird part of therapy movement that I am not a fan of.
Okay.
And that is, we will talk about Superman. But
is this the start of the show?
I guess we're doing it. Yeah. So the part about it is, I feel like there's this weird, almost like proud to have problems, narcissism version of therapy that I am now seeing. Like, oh, they often go, here's what my therapist is saying, here's what my therapist is doing, but not in a way that feels like they're taking action in their own lives. It feels like there's a trap and I've heard a talk about this very recent from some neuroscientist, right? Not that this is like the end all be all for everything about therapy. Again, these are just my own random thoughts that I've been having. Because like, especially having a month and a half off from therapy, not by choice, but by stuff that happened, I've learned so much more about myself, and I've been way more honest with myself and other people, because it's kind of like when you take a rest day from the gym and your muscles grow.
You need to, I think, balance it. I think that I don't think therapy is bad or good, but if it's a crutch, anything's bad.
It can be, that's the thing, is a lot of people don't realize the crutch that it becomes. So when you're looking at his clients who are there, a lot of them seem like Jason, if people haven't seen the show, Jason Segel plays a therapist who takes action to his own hands, and he goes too far, like he's literally going out and taking them into public stuff you're not supposed to do in therapy.
Yeah.
Stuff that I'm watching, I'm like, I don't think you should do this. But the idea of it I like, because therapy for a lot of people can become a place just to keep revalidating your problems, and you kind of just and sometimes you just go there and you just end up magnifying and reaffirming it, versus actually working towards something and progressing and doing action outside of therapy to grow. So the idea of like these patients are actually experiencing benefits because they're finally taking real action outside of that 1 hour they're there speaks massive volumes to me. I was in therapy for many years without really doing anything, and I was that, you know. And I think that's why it bothers me so much. Actually, now that I think about it, was because in the first few years when I was in therapy, it was like all about like, I felt like married and identified by my problems and all this like PTSD shit that I had. And now when I watch that show, I'm reminded of like, oh yeah, the value in taking action, and how therapy can often become something where you just show up and all you do is sort of revalidate yourself, and it becomes a venting session and not really a way to progress and grow.
So I'm going to push back slightly.
Please.
Only because
this is my first time ever talking about it, so I'd like to I'd like to unpack it.
I would push back only in that I think anything can be that, and therapy is a net positive if used well, but anything used incorrectly is wrong. And I think specifically of like the spiritual movement and hippies. I have seen people go from being like good burners to bad burners in a hurry. Like if you do anything too woo woo, you devolve into like total madness. If you do anything too anything becoming a crutch is a negative. Even you can go to the gym too much. Like you can become addicted to anything that your brain thinks is helping. So I don't think therapy is the problem.
No.
And
No, it's
I'm not saying you are.
No.
And I'm not saying you're positing that. I'm saying that the show allows an 11 of reality like any show, but I think it normalizes therapy by being absurdist in a way that is so important.
That's what I also love, because it also happens to be a show that is talking about why therapy done properly
Is important. While it's saying this isn't
fantastic.
proper.
Yes,
Harrison Ford
exactly.
is going like,
Yes.
don't do that. And then there are times that
Yes.
Harrison Ford goes like, well, Jimmy, and he breaks his own like code. But I still think that you need to have the X-Men. You had to have all the black leather suits to get to the fully
Yes.
colored yellow suit in Wolverine. You need to have the absurdist therapy show in order to normalize it for people that aren't comfortable with it.
1,000%.
So I think that you can have something become a crutch, but I still think the positive of the show outweighs the negative by a million times.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, when you say the positive show, you mean the positive of therapy?
Of therapy and the show.
Yes.
The show itself being a brand for therapy is, I think,
Yes.
a really good thing.
I actually think so too. It makes therapy look like kind of fun.
Yeah, and it also makes
appealing,
makes mental health look like something that's as important as physical health, which is not the way most Americans see it.
And I like the show demonstrating that therapists are people.
Yeah.
And ideally, the concept in therapy is the therapist isn't supposed to involve you in their personal life.
Right.
Which
And
is
then
like the
Jimmy does
antithesis of the show,
Yeah.
right? Because it's like radical therapy is what they're doing. But I like how mistakes happen along the way. And I do think it does serve the bigger point of showcasing that, yeah, therapy done right can be beneficial. And then there's more ways to develop yourself beyond that's the other thing too. A lot of people think just walking into the session is enough.
Right. And that's
what
the work is the work. You don't go to the gym
Yes.
and sit on the bench.
And that's what I love about the experimentation of the show is that sometimes it does show like, hey, sometimes these experiments do pay off.
Yeah.
Because there's so much more you do beyond just sitting down and reaffirming the same shit you've been reaffirming. Like, I'm talking about people who've like been going for a long time and nothing's changed. I'm not talking about the first like if it's your first year or something like that. I absolutely believe in therapy. I love therapy. I'm talking more to the people who've been there for a very long time and not much has really changed. And then you see this other development. It's like, you know, if you have and sometimes not the therapist. It's like if you have a personal fitness coach and you're not getting any results, you probably get it from
You
a
can
fitness coach.
plateau with one style and you'll need to change into another form. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I agree with that assessment of it. But I think the show is fantastic. And I think that like it is such a great gateway for people.
Absolutely. And the other part about that, it was really getting me aware of stupid Apple Watch. I hate this thing. So the thing it was getting me aware of
Not an Apple ad.
is no, definitely not. Is that when it comes to friendships, and I was talking with you about this a little bit beforehand, and the importance of friendships. I like how as the show evolved, it becomes more. It's like, oh, it's the ensemble is a group of friends.
Yeah.
You know, like any great TV show.
And
right?
neighbors. I love the neighborly aspect of it.
Yes, 1,000%. And I've had some like recent life things happen to me that have really caused me to have like a reevaluate. That's what I mean. The show's got me to like reflect a lot. So in a weird way, it's like a therapeutic show for a show about therapy, right?
I think it's very effective.
My paranoia is kicking in that I'm sounding like I'm anti-therapy when I'm like I'm the furthest thing from it. I've been one of the main. I've been in therapy like John and I have probably been in therapy longer than most people who've been at the channel. But it's my big. I'm not fucking justifying this shit. All right, that was my opinion. So all right,
There's your stance.
God damn it, move on.
We like shrinking.
Yeah, we like shrinking. And okay, here's the part. You know what? It just popped in my head why I was like. The part about that I don't like in LA culture specifically is there seems to be this judgment now that because it seems like such a norm to go to therapy that I've noticed, at least this is the feeling I get. I don't want to say it like an absolute. It's a feeling I get that there seems to be kind of a judgment towards people who are not going to therapy. Or they're like, oh, this person needs therapy. Like when you're around people who are in therapy and then there's that one person who's never gone or doesn't want to give it a shot, they feel like it's a must that you need to go.
I think you discovered New York this year, Greg.
Yeah.
I think you realized that LA, I love LA, but when you see what other cities do sustainably, you realize that nowhere is perfect. And I think you've only had exposure to LA, so now you're seeing all the flaws because you've
Never
had
really liked
yeah,
the state.
but like you didn't have anything to compare it to. So now everything is a little bit more highlighted. Yeah. So like I think LA is obviously very narcissistic and very judgmental, and I think that is exhausting when you can compare it to other things.
Well, see, what we're talking about, and I'm just randomly talking about therapy. What I'm talking about right now is it's the first time I'm having this conversation. I'm learning in this moment with you, you know?
About what?
Of everything I'm saying. Like, this is the first time I'm, like, confronting these thoughts.
Oh, yeah.
That just kind of happened to myself when I'm watching Shrinking, but I'm not, like, dissecting it.
Sure.
I'm not unpacking where it's coming from or where my bias is from it. And I think that way to realize, like, oh, I am a person who wants to progress and grow and hear someone else's opinion and go, oh, maybe he's right. Maybe I didn't consider that. I don't want to be someone who comes on camera and is like, I know everything, and here I'm going to speak in like I am the expert. I am the person of knowledge.
I think that was the.
But I'm saying therapy taught me to be that way.
I agree, but I also think that was the thesis when you called me about doing a show where it was long form and you and I talking, and movie news was like the undercurrent and the top was long form conversation.
Yes,
that was the draw to me because it involved like a dialogue versus a pair of monologues. So I think anytime there's a dialogue, I'm more interested in that subject matter, whether it's about art, whether it's about government, whether it's about like, I think dialogue is the only thing that interests me in anything going forward. I think that's why I do interviews like I do. I think that's why I got rid of a lot of friends. I think that's why I like don't really have a lot of patience for most people on the internet, because not everyone, a lot of people just monologue at each other, and that doesn't interest me at all.
Yeah.
So the idea of receiving data and then giving the filter of your life experience and bringing it back is what I want to do with movie news, which is what we discussed here. Yeah. But I think that is a very cousin of therapy approach. Like it needs to be externalized and then you can process it, which is the whole point of shrinking.
I totally agree with you. I think dialogue is the most important aspect. And dialogue is where you actually learn something, because you don't realize a lot of the time, as I was saying stuff that I was like, you know what's wrong with the world about therapy? And then as I was talking, I was like, oh, wait, there's actual biases that I have, and now I know why they're there. And that was affecting my opinion and my aggression.
It's a mirror.
Exactly.
Like you need that mirror to see it.
But unless people are willing to be honest and have the talk,
right,
they might not even get to that point.
You won't see the mustard on your lip till you look, man.
Right.
Like, so you have to get the thoughts out of your head so you can see the mustard.
Yeah, so I'm like, I don't really know what I'm talking about. I don't know if there's any truth to what I said. I'm like, this is just what I really feel when I'm around like therapy culture right now.
I agree, it is self-serving at times, and I think that LA everything in LA is kind of a mirror and a magnifying glass. Like everything gets bigger, so I think you're feeling a different hostility towards it because of the type of people.
Yeah. Yeah.
Also, LA is like literally just not on fire right now. It's like everything feels a little tense. Everything's a little on edge.
And I'm saying not go to therapy during this time.
Now's not the time. You lost your home? Talk about it.
Don't go.
But that's the thing is I think that there's an edginess to the year and to the world we're in right now that's a lot. And I think that is subconsciously affecting all of us. Like I've never been this bone tired, I think, in my whole life. And it's not something I've fixed with sleep. It's not something I can fix with diet. I've tried. It's not something I've fixed with. The world's a lot. But dialogue solves some of that too.
It does. Gets you on a path at least.